I am Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. Stuart Lackey joins me today for our weekly chat about Kentucky. Stuart, great to have you back. Hope all's well with you.
Chris, great to be back. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. All is kind of well with the Wildcats. They're 2-0. People have some beefs with maybe how it happened. We'll get into that in a little bit. But first of all, the more serious news: Liam Coen was hospitalized. I think it was Monday. Maybe a few details that have leaked out. Our prayers are with his family, and what do we know about the situation? And this is, by the way, Tuesday night.
Right. Chris, I know the coaching staff was kind of putting the wrap on Eastern and preparing for Akron. There was an event at the coaching or at the offices in Lexington on Monday, and Cohen was rushed to the hospital. By all accounts, it appears to be a cardiac related issue.
Hmm.
He has been discharged from the hospital and tweeted out or X'd out this afternoon that he plans on being on the sidelines this Saturday against Akron. So the question is, in what capacity will that be? I'm not sure we know that yet.
X'd out sounds a lot different than tweeted out, doesn't it?
I'm trying to be cool.
Right. Yeah, well, good luck. My daughter tells me all the time I'm not. So,
Yeah.
anyway, what would be cool is if I think the offense ran a little better out of the gate. Uh, Kentucky trails Eastern Kentucky at halftime. I know that didn't go over well. Look, there were very high expectations for this bunch. I get
Sure.
the opposition hasn't been great, but hey, take a look around the league. How did that go for everybody this weekend?
Yeah, I think the entire league has heartburn from expectations that have not yet been met, and it's still early. The expectations coming in for Leary from NC State obviously were very high. I mean, this kid was 17-4 as a starter, but he hasn't played football since October of last year. And so Kentucky fans have to remember that it's going to take a little bit for this kid to get comfortable under Cohen's system. He operated out of shotgun mostly at NC State. He's been under center a lot, the first 2 weeks. And so I think part of it is looking back, Kentucky fans looking back to 2021 when Will Levis had, some of those iconic plays to beat some pretty, impressive opponents, plays to extend drives. But if you study the statistics, Leary's actually doing okay, and Levis really didn't have statistically, great games that year from a passing standpoint. Leary actually is averaging more passing yards through 2 games than Levis did that entire season. So again, it's early. As you said, the competition not great. And so you expect to to blow these teams out and beat them handedly. But Leary has looked really impressive. And in the second half against Eastern, I started to notice some things that made me feel even better about this kid's ability to perform. And so we can get into that certainly during a discussion today.
Well, the numbers themselves aren't awful. Offensively, Kentucky, and this is going to subtract sacks from both the passing and the rushing totals. Kentucky getting 6 yards a carry. We'll talk about Ray Davis in a second. He's got a
Yep.
lot to do with that. Passing yards, 7.4 per attempt. That's certainly better than a year ago, although, again, let's consider the schedule here.
Yep.
Turnover rate, 1.8%. Not awful, not great either at the same time. I think if you live under 2, you're actually okay, but you probably want a little better than that
Yeah.
going up against the teams they're going up against. But hey, small sample size, and let's not forget, when you've got a new quarterback, you've got a new running back, you've had an injury to a key offensive lineman, all those things, sometimes it just takes a little time for things to gel.
For sure. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, and we'll get into the defense, here in a second. But Kentucky hasn't put together a complete game. I mean, they've averaged
Yeah.
57 offensive plays through the first 2 weeks, which is not great. I mean, there's some reasons for that. Certainly that attribute that, but this is bigger than just the offense not gelling. Although, to Kentucky fans, the eye test, they want to see, wide margins of victory and Kentucky blow these teams out. And I think you'll see a better performance by the entire squad, more complementary football coming in this week. But yeah, make no mistake, Devin Leary has shown really good signs. Kentucky's been, pass heavy, probably more so than they've been in the past. certainly in the past, 4 or 5 years. And if you look at the second half, Leary has completed 85% of his passes through 2 games and thrown 4 touchdowns. In the first half through 2 games, he's a 55% completion passer. And so, you know, give this kid some more time. He's certainly making all the throws, and he honestly needs to get some help from the people around him.
Yeah, I'm looking up the numbers as you're doing this. They're running the ball 63, excuse me, they're passing the ball 63% of the time, which does not seem like a Mark Stoops thing. And when they are running it, it's going pretty well with Ray Davis, although Davis has caught 6 balls so far, which is not a surprise. He did that coming in. But Davis so far, 32 touches, 210 yards, 6.6 yards per touch, 3 touchdowns. Again, just a steady presence. I like that receiving group between their starting receivers, even their depth and their tight ends. They've got some explosive guys. Davis is that move the chains guy. And I think that, I keep thinking about Chris Rodriguez a year ago. Rodriguez was kind of more of what they already had in terms of explosiveness. I mean, they had guys that could make explosive plays in Brown and Key. What they didn't have is that steady guy who could get them this and that and hang on to the ball. Davis has given them that, and I think once it starts to gel a little bit more, I don't know. I don't think I'd want to be playing this team the second half of the season.
Yeah, Davis has given them a lot, Chris, and you're right. It's a change up from what Kentucky's been used to in the power game with Chris Rodriguez and the likes of Benny Snell in years past. Davis, is reliable as a blocker. He's fast enough on the edges. He can make people miss in space. And I've been surprised, honestly, his ability to run between the tackles for tough yards. One thing I didn't really appreciate was his pass catching ability out of the backfield. He made a great play, and Leary made a pass that most college quarterbacks can't make on one of the touchdown throws to Davis. Davis made a couple of guys miss and stretch to get in the end zone. The guy's an absolute competitor. And I think, as you said, as the season wears on, he's going to be more of an asset to the Kentucky offense.
Okay, let's switch sides of the ball and talk defense. I think the defense has been pretty much on point so far, especially against the run, which is no surprise when you've got kids like Deon Walker and others on your defensive line. But how do you assess the defense through 2 games so far?
The defense, again, I mean, in the first half, allowed, and again, I'll be a little critical to start, but then I'll kind of throw some praise their way. They were responsible for letting Eastern Kentucky extend 2 drives, right? And again, you think about the number of plays on offense for Kentucky. That was a big reason. Can't get off the field on third down against an opponent like Eastern. Now, credit them; they've got some playmakers that we talked about last week, but still, no excuse not to get off the field on third down in the first half. Now, having said that, that offensive line is grading out at a high level. Deon Walker, as you mentioned, recorded his first sack of the season, got some significant pressure right up the middle. And you got to account for that in Walker. Again, double team most of the time, sometimes triple team when a blocker's back there hedging and kind of, helping out on him. You just have to do that. But you also have some other guys that are making, tremendous plays. The kid Silver, who's the transfer from North Carolina, causing havoc. You've got Josiah Hayes on one side. And again, Oxendine still, applying pressure. There's some big boys up front, and they've got a lot of depth. And the defensive line has been great against the run in the first 2 weeks.
Any concerns on defense so far? I knew you got a little critical to start, I guess, but anything that's an ongoing concern, I guess, is a good way to say it.
I've been surprised at the secondary. I thought that was one of Kentucky's strengths coming in. They had a couple of transfers that came in, but they've really worked on developing some players. Andrew Phillips, I think, led the team in tackles from kind of that weak side linebacker safety position. He kind of plays a couple of different roles there. But yeah, I've kind of been surprised on not just it's not necessarily the lack of tackling, just the miscommunication on some of blown assignments on pass plays. And again, Brad White is great at scheme and great at developing talent, and he'll get those guys dialed in. I think they're correctable mistakes, but yeah, just maybe some of the miscommunication in the secondary. The linebackers, conversely, I think you'll continue to see that position excel just because of the sheer depth that they have with the likes of De'Aric Jackson and JJ Weaver at that position.
All right, let's look forward to Akron a little bit, Stuart. The Cats are, what, 20-something point favorites. Let me see what the
I think
latest I've
that's
got
right.
here is. Yeah,
28,
25.
20.
I mean, I'm looking at covers.com numbers that are probably a little bit old. 25 is what I had as of, I think, Sunday night. ESPN's FPI has it at 27. SP Plus has it at 34. Sagan has it at 26. You think this team should win big, which is not something you take for granted in the SEC these days. So there's that. But
Yeah.
what are you looking for realistically against Akron that tells you something about this team?
Well, if you look at their first two games, they lost a close one to Temple, and then they should have lost to Morgan State, an FCS
Ooh.
team, this past week, late in the game. And I'm talking with less than 2 minutes. Morgan State led that game and had the ball and should have run out the clock and fumbled, which allowed Akron to scoop and score on that play and basically got a gift from above to allow them to squeak out a win. They shouldn't have won the game. They are highly turnover prone. If you look at their two deep, Chris, they've got, I think, 27 transfers this year that are on the two deep, which again just shows how powerful the portal has become in today's game. They're coached by Joe Moorhead, which SEC fans might remember, coached at Mississippi State just a couple of years ago. And Mark Stoops went 1-1 against Joe Moorhead when he was at Mississippi State. It's a different cast of characters, obviously a different scenario. And I think again, the Zips are turnover prone. They've got some size at receiver, again on the two deep, 6 foot, 6'2", very common at the receiver position. They've got a couple of serviceable running backs. They used two quarterbacks against Morgan State. Their starter actually didn't play as well as their backup. So I think those guys are interchangeable. You may see both of them on Saturday. Kentucky should dominate this game though. And look for them to, run up some big numbers on offense. And honestly, the defense should record maybe one or two turnovers, based on history here. So I look for big things for the Cats.
All right, you kind of touched on it, but the next question was going to be what do we need to see out of Kentucky to reduce the mail sales at Kroger?
Chris, let me pause. I've got a delay again. Can you hear that, or is it just my end?
Shoot. I think it's both of us.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Now.
It's about 2 seconds.
Okay. Did you hear the question?
You kind of cut out. Can you repeat it?
Yeah. I'll start over. 3,
Okay.
2, 1. All right, Stuart, what do we need to see out of Kentucky to put the fan base a little bit more at ease after Saturday?
I think you need to see tempo. One of the call outs after Saturday, I think the word frustration was used a lot, from the Kentucky fan base, was just the sense of urgency on offense. Took not that we had a ton of delay of game penalties that I recall, although we did have 10 penalties for 70 yards, which we didn't talk about. But I think you just want to see a faster pace on offense. Hopefully Liam Coen is, like we talked about, is on the sideline calling plays, but I'll look for that. I think Ray Davis, again, you'll have an opportunity for him to exert himself on the ground, and look for Leary just to work a little bit more efficiently with the receivers, the tight ends, and just to clean up some of the mistakes. Again, we've seen this kid's accuracy when it, at times. I think just putting it all together, and I think too, he admitted on the postgame show that he's pressing a little bit, right? I think the kid wants to show the fans that he, has commanded this offense. And so I think you'll see him maybe, come out and have an even better game. There's many people, Chris, that I think have, cast aspersions on that kid, that he's not as advertised. I still am a believer. If you can be an 85% passer in the second half, through 2 games, throw 4 touchdowns with some unbelievable touch on some passes, he's got the tools. It's just putting it all together. But yeah, I look for big things again from the passing offense for them to come out and throw up some big numbers.
Yeah, and he's also coming off an injury too, which I think is worth a note, as you know. So anyway, Stuart, we'll see you in Nashville. This time next week, we'll be getting ready for Kentucky Vandy. Right. I know we'll be in the building at that game. I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to you joining us next week when we're we're either talking about a big Kentucky win over Akron, or we're completely hitting the panic button here. I think it's going to be the first, but looking forward to it either way.
Chris, thanks so much. Always a pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Likewise. All right. He is Stuart Lackey. I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon with more Kentucky and SEC football content.